large very quickly. So if you're running short of space, be careful. Within Filmic Pro itself, you could do some very, very basic, if needed, topping and tailing to make your clip a little bit shorter. You can also color grade. So if the shot you've taken, you need to adjust it according to the color to make it look slightly different. And again, for journalism, this is something you need to be aware of or have an editorial reason for doing. You can do this within the one app. So within this one single app, you've got an awful lot of adjustment capabilities that can really make what you've recorded look very different. So you could argue it could be £6, €6 at the moment. Someone might have bought it recently, you can tell me. It's a very, very powerful app.
Excuse me, can you just show where you get the colour adjustments?
Yeah. Whoa! No, not now, I can't. Right, hang on. What do you mean in post or when you're before?
Just showing this.
Okay. So, go back to the recording I made. There. You tap to select the option, and then here you've got the options on the right-hand side. It's those sort of weak, the lines second down here, and then you've got all these sub-menus. It really is very, very powerful, and that is why it is pretty much the industry standard, not just for journalism, but also for filmmaking. I have to say, this being at the BBC, other apps are available, but Filmic Pro certainly would be a very good one to get hold of. When you've done some filming and you want to take a photo, you can, on the iPhone camera, take a photo while recording video, but that of course may adjust, you may tap the screen, which may cause a problem. So an app here, for example, like Video to Photo, lets you select from your camera roll a video, and then from here you can choose a single frame and then save exactly the frame you want to your camera roll. It's a high quality frame. Rather than just a screen grab, which may be like 200 kilobytes, this is a proper full fat grab of about 1.8 megabytes. So it's a very good quality photo that you could then use. Or an app at the bottom in the middle called Video to Audio. If you've mic'd someone up, you can then extract just the audio from video, which you can then share, and it's much smaller. Because an audio file is maybe a 20th of the size of video, and if you take out just the audio, if it's good quality, then you can share that much more quickly. So you've got video tools. Now, video editing. Bit of a giveaway there. One of them is called Tutor for iMovie. It is very good. If you want to get, I can see all the cameras going up now. If you want to get your head around iMovie, Tutor for iMovie is very good. It is all done in portrait, but we'll let him off that. Or the playback is, he recorded it in landscape, of course. Now, so iMovie, again, is the daddy of the ball. Two things to be aware of. Among the things to be aware of about iMovie are, firstly, that it only renders footage at 30 frames per second. So you could have recorded it at 25, you bring it into iMovie, and then it sort of adds a few frames for each second, but then you end up with 30 frames per second. So it's not ideal on that level. Also, when you download iMovie to your phone the first time, it's 700 megabytes. So if you're using an 8 gigabyte iPhone, and of course 8 gigabytes is not what you have available, because iOS could take up 3 gigabytes, and you've already got lots of videos and photos on your device, pretty quickly, empty iMovie takes up a lot of space. So apart from the fact it's brilliant, you've got to be aware of the frame rate option, but also the size of the app itself. But it really is spectacular. Now, I can literally only show you a couple of seconds worth of all the options you can do. But things like you can do cutaways to hide edits. You can detach the audio from video and put the audio in a different position within your recording. You can add transitions to change how you get from shot to shot. You can do a voiceover over the picture. It really is phenomenal. It does need a bit of learning, but certainly Glenn and Philip, who've done the training on it, it really can produce, and also Mark as well, it can produce phenomenal results. In the top left-hand corner is Pinnacle Studio. So Pinnacle Studio has two advantages over iMovie. It renders down 25 frames per second, which is great. It is also much smaller initially. It's only 80 megabytes. So if you're slightly short of space on a smaller iPhone, you might want to look at Pinnacle Studio. It is nearly as good. Many people like it and say it is very, very good. I just think it doesn't quite have as many options. I think the interface isn't quite as slick as iMovie, but nevertheless, very, very worthwhile to look at. There are numerous apps that can change your footage. Here come all the tones again. There are numerous apps that can change your footage. Now, one of the questions you need to think about again is there an editorial reason for making your footage look different? But if you think, for example, of the elections coming up in the UK in a couple of weeks' time, if we wanted to say, well, this is what a crowd looked like 100 years ago when they had elections, this app here called 8mm can do it very, very simply, very, very quickly for you. This app actually helped a film win an Oscar. So when a director ran out of money, he started using this app for about the last 10 minutes, and then I think, not the Oscars this year, but the one in 2014, it won an Oscar as, I think, the best documentary. So 8mm is very good for effects. I wasn't looking.
Can we go back, please?
Oh, sorry, I do apologise. Right. Right, video effects. Yeah. Oh, you're all done, yes. Right, okay, so video effects, let's say you need a justification for that. One video effect that can be very good, things like time lapses. So rather than having 30 seconds of people walking at normal speed, you can have a compressed video that will be much more visually exciting. Now, the iPhone camera itself lets you do that. So in later devices, you have the option for time lapses. So you record for a certain length of time, and then it compresses it down, and you end up with something that can look a little bit like this. He says, nervously trying to find his video that is of a time lapse. So outside the BBC, there we go. So this kind of look that visually, in a recorded piece, may be much more interesting than just people walking at normal speed. So the iPhone camera itself lets you do that. There are, again, these alternative apps that give you much more control. So things like Lapsit, iLapse, and OSnap will really let you have much more granular control rather than the iOS app, which is fine, but not absolutely ideal. Now, the one in the bottom right-hand corner, which is called Hyperlapse, is owned by Instagram. It's my other iPhone over there, because I want to use it for another purpose. Yeah. So, yep. So Instagram now brought out Hyperlapse about a year or so ago. And Hyperlapse not only lets you do a time lapse, it also lets you do image stabilization, which can produce some really impressive effects. So this is my backup iPhone with almost as many apps, but not quite as many. And so on Hyperlapse, when I was taking a plane from London to Dublin, I recorded this piece of video here. This is the stabilized version. This is the unstabilized version. This is the stabilized version. This is the unstabilized version. So if you want footage that otherwise might be shaky to look really very good quality and very stable, yes, you can buy a rig, or you can buy a gimbal that might keep it very steady, or you can get an iPhone 6 Plus that has image stabilization. But just using Hyperlapse, again, that's the unstabilized, that's the stabilized of a plane taking off. So Hyperlapse, is that on Android? No. I won't even ask the question about Windows Phone. So certainly Hyperlapse. Regarding Hyperlapse for Windows Phone. Which is? Right, okay. Right. So there are many apps that, again, can change your footage before you broadcast it, subject to that question of, do you have a reason for doing it? Now, audio apps. I mean, there are many audio apps that can do some really clever jobs. The voice memo app is perfectly good. I Said What is great for doing like a link clip package, so audio, cut, audio, cut like that. Twisted Wave Recorder in the bottom left hand can do you, again, a mix. Audio Boom is a way of getting audio onto third-party websites, but in a moment I'll show you a special way that you can use Twitter to tweet audio. Sorry, was that too quick for you? Oh, right, here we go. So those are some of the audio apps. Again, some of these are restricted, by the way. So, for example, Audio Note. If you download Audio Note Lite, you can record a minute of audio. They want you to buy the full version, which is unrestricted in the amount of audio that you can record. Hokusai is also another very popular alternative. So these are just some of them. These are not all of the iOS apps for audio. Believe me, Nick Garnett, who's doing a session next door, currently, is his favourite app for actual audio recording is this one here called Vodio. Now, Vodio sometimes crashes, but also...
Mark, can I interject something? Recorder is bankrupt,
yeah.
So the features that are on there are not supported.
Yeah, it hasn't been updated since November 2013. If you have an older iPhone, it should be fine. Newer iPhones, because they've been now using iOS 8, do not have that kind of update available. But it is very, very clever in what it can do. So you get the audio track like that. You can take out individual clips like this. Obviously it's going to be fairly random. I can choose another piece of audio from my device like here, like a bus noise. And then I can sort of select a section like that, different color because it's a different track. Or just a piece of audio. Oh, hang on, cancel, all fingers and thumbs. Tick. I've then got 3 tracks of audio like this. You then take the audio here, move it to the beginning, bring this one to here like that, this one along like that. I can then also boost the audio or decrease it to have like audio waveforms. You may call it a different thing from where you work. So like this, I'll just back that down, actually, that there, and then move that along like this, and then move that up like that, and then move that down like this. And so pretty quickly, you can make a mixed package on your phone. Now, again, one of the questions in the BBC is, do we want to deliver mixed content, or do we want to have the raw material that then we put back together at base? And of course, depending on where you work, that will be a question which you need to answer individually. But as I say, Vodio, apart from lens interjection, which is very true, it's a very good app, it just hasn't been updated for quite a while.
How do you like Vodio for video compared to iMovie?
It is very, very good, again, apart from the limitation of not being updated recently. Again, lots of camera apps, these are high-end photography apps. I don't even have, if you really know your DSLR photography, get an app called 645 Pro Mark III. It is astonishing. But if you just want sort of the one that's just below that, things like either Camera Plus or Pro Camera. Pro Camera 8 also has a very good video option in it as well. There are some apps that let you do clever things with audio on photos. So this app here called JamSnap, if I take a photo of this room here, I can then add points of audio to the actual photo. So here's a delegate from the Mojo conference in Ireland. Here's another delegate from the Mojo conference in Ireland. And here's the only person in the crowd I vaguely recognise, who is Darko. Now, if I then plug in the audio jack here. So here's a delegate from the Mojo conference in Ireland. Oh, here's another delegate from the Mojo conference in Ireland. And here's the only person in the crowd I vaguely recognise, who is Darko. So you've got those points of audio added to a photo that you can then share. So if you've got like a lineup of people, you can either get them to record themselves by tapping on the screen, or you can speak about them, and then you can share it socially. It's an app called JamSnap. Right. If you're using Instagram a lot, there's a clever app called Instapan. So if you want to put a panoramic panoramic photo onto Instagram.
Is this being filmed?
So earlier I took this panorama like this, and then you can choose the speed, how quickly you pan across the photo, and then you can upload it to Instagram, and it will do this. It will gently pan across the screen. So if you've taken a panoramic photo, it will do that for you. So that app is called Instapan. But better than the panoramic photos that the iPhone gives you, so the iPhone itself lets you do a panoramic photo, better than those are what are called 360 panorama apps. So here, things like this app called 360, you can all photo in a moment. Right. So what it's doing is it's auto-taking a whole load of photos like this. Obviously I haven't done it perfectly because we're in a hurry. And as I move around, it builds up like this until it takes the whole goldfish bowl world around me. And you end up with something that looks like this. So probably a room you'll never get the chance to go into. This is the BBC's Director General's boardroom. I was in there in the naughty room and I was being given a very stern talking to. So this is the BBC Director General's boardroom. And what this is a 360 panorama of it. And when I turn on the gyroscope, I can actually sort of look around as if I was in that room. So these are 360 panoramic apps. So this one at the top left called 360 Panorama is very good. Photosynth is owned by Microsoft, so if you already use Microsoft devices, Photosynth could be great for you. Panorama DMD is very, very clever. I'll show you Bubbly in a moment. Photosphere is owned by Google, so it could be very good on that level. I'll just ask the question, if you wanted to look at the ceiling of any place on Earth, what would you want to look at?
Sistine Chapel.
Right. So, one of our BBC correspondents went to the Sistine Chapel and did a 360-degree photo from inside the Sistine Chapel. He was called, here we go, James Reynolds.
Yeah.
This app here called Bubbly not only gives you a 360-degree view of the location you are in, so you can really get an impression of the location that you are in. It also gives you sound. So you're adding audio, the hubbub of the location he was at, but also giving people this fantastic 360 view. So again, you could share a photo. You could share a photo with audio. You could share a photo with a panoramic option, or you could share a 360 panorama, or a 360 panorama with audio. So this one I'm always slightly wary of, but I'll give it a go. It's called Scene. Scene lets you do sort of like a 3D image. It really gives you sort of depth and perspective, like that. Right, I must crack on because I realise we've got so many to get through and I've barely started them. So you may be aware. I will do that. Bear with me, caller. Right, so you may be aware that when you take a photo on the iPhone, it is automatically compressed to a JPEG. But you can actually get access to a much larger image. So this app here called Image Converter does exactly that. So if I find a photo from my camera roll like this one here, I could then expand it to a high quality TIFF photo, save it to my gallery. If I then look at the size of the image using the app called Media Info, we can see at the bottom we've got the original image, which was 228, no, it was there, 4 megabytes. It's been expanded to 8 megabytes. So it actually unfolds the photos. You've got a much larger, better quality photo if you need to use that in your area. So, some of these are very clever, don't have time. Words and text. So, when you run out of space on Twitter, you might want to sort of tweet more than you can have the text to use. So I'll let you all take the photo. And then I'll move on. So this app here called Type A. With Type A, again, I can select an image from my camera roll like this. I can then add text to it, which I will do using Siri because it's quicker. This is Mark Egan doing his thing at the Mojo conference in Dublin. And of course the Wi-Fi is going to let me down. Right. Oh, here we go. It's got as far as this is Mark. Here we go. Oh, I got your name correct. Siri is normally a damn sight faster than this. Anyone got any incidental music we can play? Okay, I'm going to call a halt to that. What I'll do now is, hang on, why are you refusing to work? Okay, good, right. Yeah, Mark isn't doing it, right. Okay, I should be able to then, this app is letting me down. It's very, very unfortunate. I'll show you an example. Much better to show you an example. So again, a BBC journalist was short of space on a tweet, so he used this app called Type A to add text underneath a photo. So here, I'm going to come off the Wi-Fi and bankrupt the BBC and use it for region. So what you've got is his tweet, and underneath it, and it's just not happening, so we are going to park this app entirely. Okay, not everything's going to work perfectly with the technology today. Sorry?
Okay.
Type A, yeah, it is very clever. If you want to see, I'll try and show you it later. You've got framing apps, so clearly you could put one image onto social, but if you could use framing apps, you could have several. So this one here called Diptych is very popular. You can choose the orientation, and then you can add several photos into a frame, and then save that, and then tweet that, or put it onto social. There's Instagram coming out with their own one recently called Layout. There's one called Pick Play Post that does video as well as photos. And on the journalism.co.uk website, there's a very good description about how to use that app. Was that you, Catalina? It was. So Catalina over there wrote a description of how to use this app. It's also on Android.
Yeah.
So what you could have is you could have someone in video talking about 3 different photos. So one potential example is during the elections, you could have a BBC correspondent saying, okay, at 12:30 we expect David Cameron to speak from Luton, and then at 3:30 Ed Miliband will be in Hull, and then at 5:30 Nick Clegg will be jumping off a bridge in Leeds. So you can put all of those elements into one video. That one is called Pick Play Post. Pick my post. It's video plus photos. Now, GIFs. Do we call them GIFs or do we call them GIFs?
GIF.
GIF. Okay,
GIF.
we'll go with GIFs. So a couple of apps that do very clever things. One here called Burstio. If you have a phone, like an iPhone that can do a burst mode of photos, then it has a very clever function. So for this, I need audience participation. So, to coin a phrase, going into normal photo mode, could you all please wave your arms in the air like you just don't care? Marvellous. That's a bit too enthusiastic. Right. So now, with this app Burstio, I go back to my camera roll, it finds, including my very newborn son there, this little, all those images there. I can then save it, choosing the sleeve. I can save it as fast, export it as an animated GIF onto my camera roll. Thereby, when I go back to my camera roll, I've got that, which I can then share and make my own GIF on my device very, very quickly. Now, the one that Philip showed earlier, at the very beginning, is this one here called Legend. It's become one of my real favourites recently. Now, I'll go with this text just because it's quicker. So you write the text, I don't know what that means, I want to go with that. Then you select a photo. So from your camera roll, or you can take a picture live, you select a photo from your camera roll like this. Of course, it should be one of me in all occasions, so there we are. I'll then zoom in like that. It then gives you options for the text to be animated, like this. And you can choose several types, or you choose one or several types. Now, my favourite hasn't yet appeared, it's probably on the third screen. So that one in the top left-hand corner, that would normally need an awful lot of processing on quite a large computer and a lot of time to do. Well, I'll just go with that one. Again, I'll choose a colour like this, and then I can just save it as a GIF or save it to my camera roll.
GIF.
And then I can tweet that. And you might say, well, how is that useful for journalism? Which is obviously my key aspect.
Which is what I asked Mark.
Yeah. And so, okay. So a BBC correspondent was recently following UKIP, United Kingdom Independence Party, where he went to a launch that they did, and he attached one of these legends like this. Yeah, it's just a way to make your content much more visible, standing out from the crowd. So this one here, when it has numbers, it animates the numbers like that. You know, that's really, really impressive for an app that was about £1.50. So that app is called Legend.
Can you put that animation over video, or is it just the background?
It's just well, as far as I know, it's the background over a photo for the moment. I mean, there are lots of photos that do very fun things, but clearly at the BBC we're not allowed fun, so I can't show you. Now, if you ever need something like auto-cue, there are several apps that will give you auto-cue. So iPrompt is a very old warhorse that does this thing. Now, you get this advert at the beginning, or wait for the advert to disappear, and eventually the advert will disappear, and when the advert disappears, you get a whole load of text which you can scroll through. I'll go with that one here, and then start, and then on your screen, you've got auto-cue like this. So on your device, you've got auto-cue in the field. Having an auto-cue machine is not something that even the BBC has many of, but just on the iPhone now, you can do that. So that's called iPrompt. But perhaps even better than that is this one here called... Oh, I'll go back in a minute. This one here called uPromptI. So with uPromptI, you can select a script from your library, you can go into the studio, and then what you have is right by the front-facing screen, the lens, you have a little window which has the text on it, which means that you can start recording and then scrolling. This app uses the front-facing camera and puts the auto window very close to that camera, meaning that you can do your piece to camera and it looks like you're talking directly into the lens.
How good is the camera?
It's the front-facing camera. It's not as good as the back-facing camera.
No, you can't lock it.
It's very much more limited. But frankly, what you've got is something which, again, is very hard to get otherwise. But this is an app for the iPhone. I'm not even going to ask the question. So, the last one I just showed, yeah, that's the one in the middle called uPromptI. ThingLink is very clever, a bit like the one I showed you earlier called Jamstack, where you can add pieces of content to a photo. You can add audio, you can add photos, you can add text, you can add video to ThingLink. Or timecode for journalists. So if you're at some kind of press conference, you can start logging the time codes, so when something interesting happens, you've then got a time code which you can then share very quickly back with your base with all the time codes logged.
Is that inside Thingy?
No, so it's a separate app.
What's that one?
I know I'm going far too quick, which I can only apologise. That is one in the bottom right-hand corner called Timecode Plus. Oh, stop moving. Right, course, finance, utilities, sharing, Twitter. Right, Twitter. Okay, so Twitter video. Again, Twitter video is something which is available on Android as well as iOS, but you cannot access video from your camera roll in Android. So with Twitter video, it's one of the few apps that likes to be held vertically. It's a very simple interface. You record by pressing on the screen, it gets a little section, you let go. You move to somewhere else, and then you let go. And then you move to a third section, and then you let go. If you hold it on the side like that, it comes out at the wrong angle. So if it's at the wrong angle, you just pick it up and drop it in the bin. You can move the blocks around like this. It is really very simple to use, and then I've got a maximum of 30 seconds. What I would prefer journalists to do is to go to their camera roll from Twitter, and then from their camera roll, they can access a video. And so somewhere here, there we are, I've got a short video there, and that is recorded landscape. So it's far better for other broadcast purposes. So you record it in Filmic Pro, you record it if you have to on a normal iPhone camera, and then you import it into Twitter, and then you can tweet it. Now, in response to what John Inger was asking about how you can tweet audio, it's by using this very clever audio app, which is called Voice Record Pro. Now, Voice Record Pro does something which I've never found an app on the iPhone able to do. It can choose different audio formats, so MP4, MP3, WAV. You can change a lot of the specifications. I'll just go with MP3 because it's nice and small. I can then start recording. You've got a waveform like this. I can decrease the input, increase the input, etc. And I can record a short piece of audio like this. Then I stop recording. In the top left-hand corner, I've got the camera icon. From there, I can access my camera roll. I can then select a photo here. Quite grainy because it's quite zoomed in and fill it like that. So that photo is now associated to that piece of audio. If I then save that photo to my camera album, the camera roll, with nothing on top of it like this, Twitter treats it as a piece of video, which means that I can go back to Twitter, access that piece of audio, which Twitter thinks is a video, from my camera roll, and then, if I just plug that in, you'll hear the audio. Increase the input, etc. And I can record a short piece of audio like this. And then I can tweet that audio. So if Twitter treats it as video, no. It reflects even worse than on me. So it's a very clever app, but it's a bit of a workflow, it's a bit of a process, and it's still very worth doing.
What's the name of the app?
Whoa, sorry, right. The app itself to do that is the one in the bottom right-hand corner called Voice Record Pro. So just a couple of things about Twitter. I know that you can do lots of great news on Facebook, but no, you can't. Buffer. Buffer lets you time tweets. So if you know you're going to some kind of press conference where you're going to be frantically busy working at the press conference, you can use Buffer to actually pre-write a tweet. So you write the tweet in Buffer. Thank God it didn't come out. Then you can schedule the time way into the future of when you want to actually send the tweet, and then you don't need connectivity. So you could be, in the middle of nowhere, having preset your tweets, and it'll still do it for you automatically. Again, this is one example where you've got the free app, you get 10 in a queue. If you buy the full app, you can have many more than that. So Buffer is very clever on that level. Many social apps, many storytelling apps. Now, there are some really fantastic storytelling apps that do some really clever things. Now, Philip is the master of these, so I might defer to him to explain them in more detail. But things like Stella, or Storehouse, or Storyline. And in fact, I saw one only today from Neil Organstein. Oh, just one quick tip about Twitter, about your iPhone. So if you're right at the bottom of any kind of page on your phone, just tap the time at the top. And if you tap the time at the top, your screen automatically goes whee, right to the top, and just saves you the hassle of having to go back to the top. Anyway, so you may have seen Neil Organstein from WTOP, and he was here yesterday. He's gone back to the States now, but he recently, before he left, did a story on Stella about his time here in Dublin. Now, if it's going to work on the 3G, here we go, and what you get is this sort of magazine you can leaf through like this. So a little piece of video, and then the photos that you add text onto. And so you make this all on the device. If you've got good photos and you've got the good video, not audio, because we don't see that photo, not audio, because audio does not work on the iPhone the same as video and photos. You can access your photos and video, and then you can build this kind of rich content, Philip again, on your device. It's really very, very spectacular. A simpler app could be one like this called Storyline. So Storyline lets you, well, I'll show you how it works very quickly. You can go to your camera roll, go to your albums, go to a selection of photos, choose photos like this, boom, boom, and there we are. So I've got those photos, add a title, call it test, next, and then I can record my voice on top of those photos. I can make a little, what do they call audio slideshows. So this is the world's smallest violin, if ever you need to sympathise with someone not really. This is a button you shouldn't push. This is the iStick, which is a very clever way of adding extra capacity to your device. This is a colour reducing app on the iPhone. This is the BBC's headquarters in London. This is my wallpaper at home that might give you a headache. This is the guy from Breaking Bad. This is the guy using a selfie stick. And these are some sheep. And this is the underground sign. So I've now just made that in a very hurried way. But very quickly, it will stitch it all together on 3G, which is why it probably isn't going to be as quick as I would like. And what you'll end up with is a flowing storyboard of images with the photos added to them.